Hello, I'm Steven Olson, and welcome to Spirit Basics, the show for everyone from the beginner to the avid connoisseur of fine spirits.
And I'm Jennifer Allan. Today's episode is all about absinthe. Now, there's a lot of lore and history surrounding absinthe, but let's start at the beginning.
Let's start at the beginning. In the late 1700s, a doctor in Switzerland creates what we know today as absinthe. Pernod, the company we talked about before that is now making pastis, still makes a little of that absinthe that goes to places besides here. We'll talk about that later. Was the first licensed distillery on the western French border of Switzerland. Now, remember, medicinal purposes. It was a doctor. And I might just take a moment to say this spirit embraces everything that we've been teaching in this series. The great lore and history, a culture surrounding the drink and the way to drink it, rituals, the medicinal purposes, flavors being added. Now, wormwood was the key flavor, and wormwood was known to stimulate creativity. It's considered an aphrodisiac. It has medicinal properties. And like all other spirits, there's this fabulous history. Now, Dale's going to talk about that a little bit later on, but know this: Picasso, Van Gogh, Oscar Wilde, Toulouse-Lautrec, Edgar Allan Poe, the list goes on. These people all drank this to stimulate their creative juices. Women. This is the first time that women were ever able to drink fashionably in coffee houses, was drinking this stuff, but the right way in this ritual, which we'll also talk about later in the show.
If it was so popular back then why don't we see a lot of it today?
Well, that's a great question. It was popular then because it was billed as being this healthful beverage. It was advertised that way. And also there were those who thought it had hallucinatory ingredients. It created a magical type of euphoria. And these artists and writers were also drinking it for its creative properties. They called it the Green Fairy. Happy hour, which is what we call it today, was actually in those days called the Green Hour. Now, the problem with this is it was very strong. It's like overproof that we talked about in our last episode. So because of this, some people started drinking it straight, and other producers started making it in a less than reputable fashion. It becomes the scapegoat for European temperance movement, and here too. And Europe used it as their version of prohibition. They just outlawed this instead of outlawing everything else. And quite frankly, a worldwide ban that happened in the early 1900s is still in force for most countries in the world today.
Well, for his own look at absinthe, we turn now to our master mixologist, Dale Degroff.
Absinthe, still illegal in most countries in the world. What is the deal here? Now, I've been personally enjoying absinthe for some time now because I work often in London, and in London absinthe is legal, and there are very many brands of it on the shelves in liquor stores in the UK, including the original Pernod absinthe, which although it is made in France, cannot be sold in France, but is exported to London and Czech Republic and sold there. Absinthe in the 19th century was the most popular spirit. It was like the cosmopolitan of the 19th century. It was unbelievably popular. It was exported to our country, where it was big in the bars of New York City. In Little Paris, New Orleans, it was huge. They made a monument to absinthe. It was called the Old Absinthe House. I had a drink in the Old Absinthe House before it closed, the famous Sazerac cocktail, which I will reprise for you later on right here at this bar in this show. The first time I had one, I sat down at the bar and I ordered from the woman, the young woman behind the bar, a Sazerac cocktail. She poured the absinthe in the little rocks glass. Of course, it was Herbsint, which is an absinthe substitute. It wasn't the real deal because, yes, it is illegal here also, or in Canada as well. And she tossed it up in the air, yelling Sazerac, and she caught that glass, coating the inside with absinthe, and then made my Sazerac cocktail. It was a great show. But absinthe, the whole thing, it started in France. And I have a friend named Barnaby Conrad III who wrote an extraordinary book about absinthe called Absinthe, History in a Bottle. And in it, he has color plates of all the famous 19th century Impressionist artists who each did their expected portrait of the lone absinthe drinker sitting at his Paris cafe table with the Green Fairy in front of him, dejected, lost in a haze of absinthe. But personally, I think absinthe got a bad rap. I think it should still be illegal. I think it's illegal because it was a high-proof spirit. That's what I think. But I'm going to make one of these cocktails for you very shortly.
Up next, we'll reveal how absinthe is made.
And our spirit insiders, Morgen and Scott, will try to unravel the mystery behind absinthe. It's all coming up when Spirit Basics returns. Welcome back to Spirit Basics. Right now, we're going to talk about how absinthe is made.
And basically, it is a distillate like any other, and it's flavored distillate. In this case, the green actually comes from chlorophyll, and remember, originally it was wormwood that was the main ingredient. And that is where it all begins with the ban. For example, Artemisia absinthium is what was actually banned. We were led to believe it was very, very dangerous. Recently, researchers at UC Berkeley have analyzed thujone as the chemical compound in Artemisia absinthium, and it affects the brain signals, the electrical signals in the brain. But I want to explain that you would need a massive concentrated amount of this stuff, far more than you could get if you drank an entire bottle of absinthe to have it do any kind of damage.
Well, if this chemical is in such a low concentration, there had to be more to this worldwide ban.
Well, I'm absolutely convinced it's about the alcohol, and for very good reasons. People were drinking it straight, and there were some that were really not very well made, and that's the big problem. This is very, very high alcohol. It's 150 proof. Now, I don't think, and none of us believe at this today, I think, that wormwood is as dangerous as the quantity of the alcohol itself. There's absolutely no way you could enjoy the medicinal, euphoric, creative properties of this if you didn't consume it properly. It needs to be sweetened. It needs to be diluted. You have to consume it in very small quantities. I'll tell you, some places in the world, it is still legal.
Well, for a deeper look at how absinthe is made, we turn to our spirit guide.
Ah, what a wicked reputation absinthe has. It's because of absinthe's carrying a plant called wormwood, and in fact the active ingredient of wormwood, which is called thujone. Now that's seen as something really horrible and despicable and caused all sorts of problems in 1905 when a couple of people drank too much, including absinthe, and did some very bad things. It's important to know that they only had a couple of ounces of absinthe, and the people who did these bad things drank liters and liters of wine and other spirits the same day. So why absinthe got the rap for it, I can't say. Once upon a time, it had no bad rap at all. If you go back to Egyptian times and Roman times, it was a healthful beverage. If you look at the chariot racers, the winners of the chariot races, they would be given a wormwood extraction, a drink out of wormwood. Okay? And that was not seen as something bad. It was seen as something bitter because they wanted the winners to realize that with winning still comes the bitterness of real life. But much, much later, we decide that absinthe's a very bad thing because it has wormwood in it. What's the German word for wormwood? Vermouth. Yeah, you see, vermouth has wormwood in it, only they just use the flowers. And in absinthe, we use the whole plant, which gives you a lot more of the thujone. So today, it doesn't have any of that, just anise, myrrh, and a bunch of other flavorings, but it still carries that bad connotation. In fact, what is the Russian word for wormwood? Chernobyl.
Well, now that we've taken a look at the history, the origins, and the process of making absinthe, time for an inside look.
Our spirit insiders, Morgen and Scott, hit the road to learn more about absinthe.
Jennifer, Stephen, thank you very much. I'm here in New Orleans at the Museum of the American Cocktail with our good friend Dale Degroff. And Dale, we're standing in front of the absinthe display here. Can you tell me a little bit about absinthe and maybe, how did they originally start drinking it?
Well, see the spoons here. They have these wonderful decorative holes in them, and they have a little notch. Those spoons were laid over the traditional V-shaped absinthe glass, not unlike our martini glass, actually, but a little bit longer. And those spoons were there to hold a sugar cube.
So now you have a little bar of wormwood back here. What exactly is it?
It's a weed that grows in the foothills of the Alps, grows all over Switzerland and the hills of France. And it wasn't the plant itself that they used because absinthe was really basically eau de vie of grape, which means unaged grape brandy, that was infused with lots of different flavors, licorice, the anise flavor, but they extracted an oil. But something, there was so little of this oil in absinthe that it got a bad rap.
Dale, on this side, you guys have a picture of an old absinthe house. So what's going on with the absinthe over here?
Well, it's not the original, but it's one of the locations of the old Absinthe House Saloon, famous for the Sazerac cocktail. Sazerac cocktail, which was made with absinthe and made with rye whiskey. Actually, to tell you the truth, it evolved from a cognac drink. And actually, the drink is named after a brand of cognac that was imported from France into the port of New Orleans called Sazerac des Forges et Filles. And I have a bottle right down there, and you saw it before. That was the bottle that was brought into New Orleans. And it started out as a simple drink with Peychaud's bitters and cognac. And it evolved into today's modern Sazerac, which is a rye-based Peychaud bitters, slightly sweetened lemon whiskey drink that's chilled but drunk without ice. And the glass that it's served in is seasoned with Herbsinthe. Herbsinthe being a absinthe substitute made locally here, like Pernod or Ricard or Pastis from Marseille. These are all spirits that were created to take the place of what was the most popular spirit in the 19th century, absinthe.
Great. Dale, thank you very much. Steve and Jennifer, that's it for me. Back to you guys.
Up next, we continue our look into the spirit world with a lesson on how to drink absinthe and how to use it in some of your favorite cocktails. That's when Spirit Basics returns.
Spirit Basics is brought to you in part by Willow Park Wines and Spirits.
Welcome back to Spirit Basics, the show for everyone who wants to learn more about the world's greatest cocktails. Time now to take a closer look at how to enjoy absinthe.
Now, Stephen, tell us the traditional way to enjoy absinthe.
I will indeed. It's called the absinthe drip, and basically we're going to one of two ways, but usually today we talk about dripping water into sugar to dissolve it and then pouring that into the absinthe.
Now, is the sugar added just to sweeten it?
Sweeten it, and also remember sugar softens alcohol. Now, the way I've always been taught to do it and the way that I prefer to do it is I put either ice cubes or water in the glass. I put the sugar on the spoon. We pour the absinthe on the sugar and soak it, and then light it on fire. As it's burning, we're burning off alcohol. We then drip the sugar and the alcohol onto the ice, which melts the ice and creates water. The water dilutes the alcoholic strength, the sugar softens it, and we burned off alcohol. So we're reducing the alcoholic strength of the drink, diluting it, and concentrating the flavors. Remember, too, that absinthe is one of the great ingredients for some of the classic cocktails, but like any other overproof alcohol, we would never use more than just a very small amount for flavoring.
Well, for a deeper look at how to enjoy absinthe, we turn to our spirit advisor.
Well, this is absinthe, but not the absinthe of the ancients, not the absinthe that was consumed 120 years ago, not the absinthe of Verlaine and Baudelaire and Van Gogh and Rimbaud and the rest. They thought it fueled their incredible artistic insights, and they thought absinthe did that not because of the alcohol, though it is very high in alcohol, 140 proof. It was because of an ingredient called thujone, and the absinthe we buy today, albeit hard to find, very few countries make it legally, the absinthe today has a fraction as much thujone as the absinthe of their day. Less than 10% as much thujone, because that's believed to be the very dangerous ingredient. Well, it has the major flavoring elements of those old absinthes, which are anise, primarily anise. I stick my nose in there, and the first thing I smell is that beautiful, bright, licorice smell of anise. Meets floral aromas, meets something herbal, something minty. Indeed, this one is spearmint. It's almost a little touch of bubblegum to it. It's got that blue-green color that we expect from these drinks. Could come from coloring, could come from plants. Certainly, I'm going to expect it to have more than just the smell of this anise. I'm going to expect it to have the bite of tons of anise. And indeed, it has that numbing impact, like thujone used to provide Very little of it comes from that today, but it gives that very warming sensation that you expect from absinthe and a very, very long finish.
Our master mixologist, Dale Degroff, joins us now with a lesson on how to make a classic absinthe cocktail from New Orleans.
We are going to talk about and make drinks with what was the most popular spirit in the 19th century, absinthe, which is now illegal in most countries in the world. Let me show you something. This is an illustration from the Craft of the Cocktail of the traditional way of serving absinthe. This was the absinthe glass, and this was the absinthe spoon. There's actually a selection of the spoons here. This was a necessary way to drink absinthe in those days because absinthe in the 19th century came off the still at between 130 and 150 proof, and it was bottled that way. In order to bring it down to reasonable drinking strength, they added water, and it was also quite bitter because no sugar was added. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a classic American drink called the Sazerac from New Orleans, which used absinthe as a strong flavoring. This was made traditionally in New Orleans with 2 rocks glasses, just like this. The first rocks glass we're just going to fill with ice because we want to chill it down. Now the second rocks glass, I'm going to begin with a little bit of sugar and then 2 kinds of aromatic bitters, Angostura and one from New Orleans called Peychaud's, which I've decanted into this bottle. And I'm going to take my muddler and make a little bit of a paste, a flavored paste. Now, Sazerac was the name of a cognac that was imported from France, Sazerac des Forges et Filles, in the 19th century. So, and the drink evolved into a rye drink when we became a whiskey drinking country, but I like to make it with a little bit of rye and a little bit of cognac. So I'm going to do my version of the drink, the Sazerac cocktail. Now I'm going to chill the spirit in here. The drink is taken without ice, but it's chilled. And while this is chilling over here, little stir, I'm going to take this glass, nicely chilled, remove the ice, flavor with absinthe. The Green Fairy. I'm going to put a little bit in here, and the way they did it in New Orleans was they'd step back away from the bar, and in order to coat the inside of that glass, they just take it and throw it up and just say Sazerac, coating the whole inside of the glass with the absinthe. The glass is now nicely seasoned and ready to go. I'm going to take my chilled liquid, strain it over to the other glass, and I'm going to take a match and flame a lemon peel over the top. This drink will warm up to room temperature over time because this is a sipping drink. You sip it slowly and all the flavors start to unfold. The flavors of the bitters, the flavors of the whiskey, and the flavors of the absinthe. Steve, Jennifer, back to you.
You know, like many of the other classic spirits we've covered in past episodes, from its inception, absinthe has been used in the kitchen.
And after the break, we'll head into the kitchen to show you some delicious recipes using absinthe. That's when Spirit Basics continues. Welcome back to Spirit Basics. As you can see, we're in the kitchen and we're joined by our spirit chef, Chef Allan. Thanks again for joining us.
It's great to be back, Jennifer.
Now today we're talking about cooking using absinthe. Absinthe is a pretty unique spirit.
Well, that's one word to describe it, unique, and another is mystique. You know, if there's any spirit that we're cooking with that's been more storied or mired in myth, it's absinthe. But you know, it's a beautiful spirit to cook with because it's got a very strong licorice or anise taste, and this shows all about the flavor, and this is a very strong flavor.
So it wouldn't be that difficult to bring it into the kitchen?
No, in fact, you know, we've cooked with other spirits like ouzo for that anise taste or Campari for an herbal or medicine-y taste. This is a nice combination of both. both of them, but the fact of the matter is that at the end of the cooking process, the residue you're going to get is licorice or anise, so it's actually a very, very good spirit to cook with.
So we talked about absinthe being unique and mystique. There's a lot of myth and legend and lore surrounding this spirit, and it's making a huge comeback right now. Are we finding it, to be the same case in the kitchen?
Absolutely, and in fact, that's part of the charm, is when you have something with a cachet like absinthe, you'll find chefs putting it on the recipe, so it won't just be oysters Rockefeller or something, it'll be with absinthe. And even at home, if you want to add a little spice to your dinner party, this is a great way to do it.
Well, we've got some unique dishes in front of us here. Can you tell us what they are?
Well, the first one is a classic dish, which is the oysters Rockefeller, created around the time that absinthe was at the height of its powers. And it's some oysters with some absinthe, covered with some greens, in this case some spinach, and then baked. And the absinthe is perfect with the spinach. Spinach lends itself for this kind of a taste, like nutmeg or licorice. And so this is one of the best ways to eat oysters as far as I'm concerned.
Now I see we have a dessert. Absinthe in a dessert, I wouldn't think that you would pair the two together.
Well, when you have a dessert like this is a painter's bread pudding. So actually it's very plain. So it's got just some stale bread and some chocolate. So you have some neutral taste, and you also might have some bitter taste. Absinthe, that kick of flavor and that strong flavor is perfect, because when you bake this, the odor comes out and the flavor goes in, and it's just perfect.
Will you get that licorice taste off of this?
Absolutely. That's the residue you get, and it's very nice.
So again, if you're not interested in, or if you don't like drinking the spirit, you probably shouldn't use it in your recipes.
Good rule of thumb, go into your liquor cabinet, maybe use something else, but this is a good weapon to have in your arsenal.
Well, if you'd like to try any of these recipes, all you have to do is log on to our website. Over to you now, Stephen.
Thanks for those great recipes, Jennifer. Well, that's it for this edition and this season of Spirit Basics. I hope you've enjoyed our look at the world of alcohol. We've tried to share with you the culture, the history, and the health benefits of moderate alcohol consumption. I'm Steven Olson. For Jennifer Allen, for the entire team here at Spirit Basics, we'll see you next time around. Cheers.
Special thanks to Willow Park Wine and Spirits, whose dedication to providing knowledge, awareness, and service to their customers has made this show possible.